Hey guys, it's Pete for Beef Anxiety here. Welcome to today's episode. I appreciate y'all being here so much. Let's talk about a few things real quick. The Pete vs. Anxiety Team Anxiety Facebook group. Are you a part of it? You're not? What are you waiting for? The link's down here in the description down below, or go to Facebook and search Pete vs. Anxiety. Then look for the Team Anxiety team page and join it today. Why not? You can join and help. It'll be great. Yeah, like right now. Hurry up. Stop what you're doing. Pause this video. Go do it right now. But anyways, let's also talk about the Pete vs. Anxiety YouTube page. If you're here right now, you're probably following it most likely. If not, head on over there, subscribe, be sure to like and comment on the videos and let me know, because all that stuff really helps, guys. I really appreciate it. And help me break the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. But anyways, guys, let's get into today's episode. I'll have a great one. Thank you so much again. And as I always say, don't ask how your day is, ask how your mental health is today. Guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Pete vs. Anxiety here on the Oracle Talk Radio Network. My guest today is the one, the only, the author of The Magical Mind Shifts, the one, the only, Larry Volz. Larry, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm good. Glad to be here.
Great. Thank you so much for being here, Larry. So why don't you give everybody a little more about your background so they have a little more idea, and then we'll jump into what the book's about.
Sure. I'm a bit of an oddball. I've spent a career helping people with hypnosis. I'm both an entertainer, where I entertain people with hypnosis on stage, and I've helped many people with different lots of anxiety, quit smoking, all that kind of thing. And right at 2 years ago, I woke up at about 4 a.m. thinking my arm and leg were asleep, and I got up to do some stretching and a little yoga. I did a downward dog, and this dog went down. It just, I fell over, and what the hell? And within moments, I realized my entire right side had become paralyzed. And when I called out to my son for help, I couldn't pronounce consonants. So it was a stroke, and it had a tremendous, like a 60-mile-an-hour train wreck on my life. And so I went through a real journey. And
yeah, journey to say the least. I mean, yeah, you just doing a little downward dog, and all of a sudden the dog went down.
Yeah, it was so I spent a long time coming back from it, and the journey is something I talked about in the book, and I laugh about the fact that I very much had to practice what I preach. You know, everything I'd been helping people with using hypnosis and coaching, I suddenly had to use myself, and to stay in the right kind of mindset and develop the determination and the hope, and in getting myself back to the point where within a year and a half, I'd gone from a bed to a wheelchair, to walking with a cane, to walking without a cane, to walking without a cane while drunk. But yeah, I'm back on stage now, and it's been a lot, and I learned a hell of a lot, and I'm trying to share what I've learned through the book.
So let's go to the moment you realized you wanted to write this book. You know, obviously the magical part comes from you being on stage, doing hypnosis and things like that. So what made you want to write this book? What was that turning point where you're like, you know what, I should write this in a book. This could help more people than just some.
Yeah, sure. Well, at first, it was just about survival, and thinking how I can turn my mindset to being positive, being hopeful. Stroke isn't like other things. You don't heal from it. It's about neuroplasticity. It's about teaching another part of the brain to take over for the part that broke, And so it was mostly about that where I was focused to begin. But I did have at one point, you're there and you're depressed and you're overwhelmed, and you have to think, you have that moment. I think everybody even thinks about, why go on? You
Mm-hmm.
know, what makes life worthwhile? And I thought about what could I do if I couldn't entertain or help people. And the book was one way I could share, a lifetime of experience and give my lifetime meaning, even though I couldn't speak. And one thing that told me that on average, a stroke survivor will live 10 years less than most people. And I thought, what can I do with the time I've gotten? It occurred to me that if I'm not here, maybe, you know, what would I like to be able to share with my kids if I'm not here for them? And that was probably the main reason, was to share anything I have to give with my kids and the world at large.
Yeah, why not print? I mean, books are still around now, and where everybody's saying that, media print's going dead, but it's not. Books still keep appearing. People keep writing books, even digital or regular. It doesn't matter. They're still existing here. Why not leave a lasting legacy of something that you could do to help people based on your own experiences and things like that?
Yeah.
So in the book, you talk about the Mama framework. Do you want to explain to everybody what exactly that is? These are for the people that obviously haven't read the book. I've had the pleasure to read it. So, I have the idea what it is, but I'll better coming from the man himself telling us what it is.
Sure. MAMA is an acronym for the four things you can always control when things are out of control, and they stand for motivation, attention, mind shift, and action. You know, um, your motivation is why go on, why persevere, why do you do whatever you do. You can focus and really define what matters for you, your why. Your attention matters, like when you're going through things, you can focus on poor me,
Right.
that's uh, but that direction doesn't really help you in the long run. We all have self-pity sometimes for a while, but yes, healing goes from when you're saying why me to why not. how can how can how can I enjoy the moment? What can I do to improve things or look at things in a humorous way? So your attention that helps you gain control. And mind shifts are shifts in belief or perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And say one of my favorites is, instead of saying why can't I this or that, when you say how can I,
Exactly.
because you're assuming I can do it, but I just have to figure it out. you know so mind shifts, and that's what the book is about, is differences in perspective. You can look at things from a certain way, and they'll help you increase your mood and your feelings and motivation. There are a lot of little mind shifts I've learned and borrowed from people wiser than myself. And sometimes the right mind shift really can feel magical. That's why I named it that way. And of course, you can take whatever actions are available to you. And sometimes you need to, you won't get up and exercise it unless your mindset is in such a way that get you off the couch.
Right, very true, very true. You got to have that motivation too. So that's another M as well too. Be motivated to get up and have a goal in mind of where you want to be. I
Right.
do know in the book though you do mention unconscious minds. You know how I can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality. That sounds almost too good to be true. Can you give us some examples of that though?
Yeah. Well,
Well, especially during your recovery too. You know, give us a little more. Give us the Larry mindset. How was Larry's unconscious mind thinking about that?
sure. Well, the unconscious is something we hypnotists think about all the time, right? Because we use trance to help people focus and concentrate and communicate with a deeper part of ourselves. In terms of what I was going through, I know there's a hero of mine by the name of Milton Erickson. He's a famous was a famous hypnotist. He had uh was muscular, no, it was uh well, I can't remember now, but he had a polio. There we go. He had polio, and it caused him to be paralyzed from the waist down as a kid. But he imagined very, very deeply. Before he knew what hypnosis was, he very deeply imagined what it would look like, what it would feel like. Uh, from a first person perspective, to be playing and swinging from vines and climbing trees, and he was able to bring back the functionality of his legs. And nowadays, modern science says this is what they call, sometimes doctors will call it motor visualization and motor imagery rather than hypnosis. But it is communicating with your unconscious mind, and it's teaching your brain to make new connections. And with my arm, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't move at all. I couldn't even, not a finger, right? But when I yawned, right, my arm would lift up on its own. And it was freaky, right? And I'm
Right.
lying in bed and it yawned and it would come up. And so I decided I was going to try that. And I imagined all these tiny wires, thousands of tiny wires going down my arm into my brain. And when I yawned, I would imagine sending electricity and signals to it. And I'd try out my hardest to keep it from going back down. And after a couple of days of really focusing on it, I could pause it, right? And it was fall again, but I would see a little bit of improvement. And day after day, that kind of visualization, I eventually got my signal back where I've got almost full mobility.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Because when I read that, I was like, wow. I said that's really crazy because the mind is that powerful. You think about it, because you were sitting there visualizing it moving, and then you got it to stop finally, and then you finally start gaining control, which had to feel powerful in itself, because you're like, oh man, at this point I can at least move my arm. You know, that's a start. If I can do that, where can I stop next? You know, now you're back up to fully functional now. And things
Yeah.
like that. So I mean, it's amazing, man. The story, I'm not telling you, the story is amazing in there. I know in the book you do mention children laugh like 400 times a day, which I think is funny, because while adults only laugh 12 to 15 times, that's a huge gap. How does the discovery of laughter could literally be medicine? I know Patch Adams touched on this a little bit in the movie when the Robin Williams did, because he was saying like laughter is a great form of medicine for people, and people always thought he was just making up stuff, but right there, it's not a lie, honestly, because it's a fact. If they laugh 400 times a day, adults do 12 to 15 a day, there's something there with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think with somebody owes us 385 laughs a day. It's it's cool you mentioning Patch Adams. He's one of my heroes. It's I've gone to his website and read about him. I'd like to visit him at some point. Yeah, he's an amazing guy. Laughter is the best That's what they say, especially if you don't have health insurance. Uh, uh, Laughter, it releases dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, all the happy hormones. And it's funny, I do something called laughter yoga and laughter therapy. Laughter yoga is the idea of laughing for no reason, right? And the idea, a simple exercise is just laugh. Set a timer for 60 seconds and just laugh your butt off. And it will invariably make you feel better, because it doesn't matter if it's real laughter or just the physiology of it.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like bucks no matter what. And laughter yoga, we do silly exercises along with it. And it's still, though, you feel a little strange because nobody said a clever joke, right?
Yeah.
When you get used to it, it makes you know how good laughter makes you feel. And sustained laughter has health benefits that go on. And there's lots of scientific studies that have shown it increases your immunity, increases your lung capacity. It's an incredible natural treatment for depression. If you spend, and the Zen Buddhists will do this, and they 15 minutes with deliberate mourning. And I do that too. And when you do that, you feel much better all day long.
Yeah.
No,
you're right.
Yeah, and there was a gentleman, Norman Cousins, brought it to the attention of the medical community years ago, and it's more doctors and more of the medical community are realizing it, but nowhere near what they should. Laughter yoga, you can find communities that do it all over. It's worldwide. It's getting bigger, and using laughter with hypnosis and coaching. Laughter is an alternate, right? If you have a problem, when you can laugh at it, you're healing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
True. It's very true. Very true.
yeah.
It's funny that you say laughter healing, because I had a previous guest on the show named Dave Maury. Dave actually is a comedian. Dave runs these classes where he teaches people to laugh at their own mental health issues. Like, you make jokes about it, things like, he'll go on stage and he makes like all these different jokes, but he's only making jokes about himself. He's not joking about other people in general, which I thought was amazing, because Dave can laugh about anything. He's talking about everything from just depression down to suicide. He has his own jokes. And Dave and I were chopping it up for a bit. We were laughing hysterically during this thing. And, to everybody else that really didn't understand it, probably like, well, these guys are something sick in these guys' heads. But Dave and I were having a great time, because we could sit here and laugh about these things, just like you said. If you can laugh at it, you're actually starting to heal from it. And Dave was teaching people and teaches classes on people like, hey, listen, you can make jokes about yourself. It's okay. Why not laugh about it? I mean, these are things you deal with, but don't let it take over your life, essentially,
Yeah, big time.
So, but we're going to get to my favorite part of the book, because this is Pete versus Anxiety. Now, Larry mentions in his book, he says that when someone's mind is spinning without worry, you teach a technique called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Can you walk us through and explain how this works quickly to stop anxiety?
Sure, yeah. If you like, we can actually do it.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, cool. And, anybody who's watching or listening, I'd invite to do it along with us.
Okay.
What I say is start off, just open up your peripheral vision and just look at the room in front of you,
Okay.
and notice 5 things that you see. Don't need to name them or even think of the name of them. Don't need to move your eyes. Just look at 5 things at once and then listen. Listen, and maybe you notice the sound of an air conditioner, sounds inside or outside the building. Just notice as many things as you can, up to 5 things that you hear. And then go inside and feel. And notice the rhythm of your breathing. Notice the chair beneath you. Notice the hat or your earphones, the glasses on your face. Notice where your skin is more cool or more warm, where you've got tension, where you're most relaxed. Just notice 5 things that you feel and just feel them. And then go back to your site and look around, notice 4 things that you see, and just look at them. Then listen, notice 4 things you feel, and really listen. Go back inside, notice 4 things you feel, and feel them. Look, really focus on 3 things that you see. Listen to 3 things. Feel 3 things. Look, see 2 things to really look. Listen to just 2 things. Really listen. Go inside, feel 2 things and really feel. Now look, listen, and feel. Just look, just listen, and just feel. And I want you to repeat that mantra. Just look,
Just look.
just listen. No, don't
In my
think.
head? In my head, tell it? Okay, I'm doing it in my head.
Just look, really listen, really feel, and keep repeating that. Notice what you see is real. What you hear is real. What you're feeling is real. Nothing in your head is real. But what you see is real. You may be thinking of what could happen, what could not happen, what did happen, theoretical things. Push those thoughts aside and just listen. Just feel. Just look. Just listen. Just feel. When a thought comes into mind, acknowledge it, then push it away and look. Notice what you see, what you hear, what you feel. Let your thoughts slow push them and just look, just listen, and just feel. Notice that what you see is fine. No one's poking you with a fork. You're fine. Listen, nobody's hurting you. Feel, you're okay. In this moment, you're okay.
Yeah.
And that's the idea. It's about mindfulness, and by really focusing on what you're experiencing, you can quiet your mind and be here now. And really, most of the time, 99% of the time, you're okay. You just settle down and relax into the moment. That's what that. I also call that the be here now, or hypnotists will call that kind of an idea an uptime
Yeah.
uh, experience.
Well, as a sufferer of anxiety myself, I think that really works too. I like that helps you refocus your mind because I have a journal that does the same thing. So when I don't have it, I can use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method as well now, and I could sit there and I could do it in my head. And no one will know what I'm doing because they'll have no idea exactly what I'm even doing.
Right.
Which because
Yeah.
that way I'm not self conscious about it, and people looking at me like I'm weird, like I'm talking to myself.
Right. You can even do it while driving.
Right?
And it's actually kind of funny as far as it makes you more present, and you're paying attention to the drivers around you. And, you know, and when you're driving, sometimes you don't realize how much anxiety is coming. Somebody hits the brakes and your knuckles go right on the steering wheel,
Right.
and when you're noticing all those things, you can let go of it, be more present. And that in itself is a great exercise to teach your brain to just relax and enjoy life more.
Yeah. No, it makes sense though. You think about it, if you're more focused on what you're doing driving, because some of these people where I live in Texas, they can't drive nothing, man. They
Oh
are terrible drivers.
my
God.
God.
Like
Yeah.
I'm from the north, man. We had like 8-lane highways. These guys would never make it across an 8-lane highway. We'd have more tracks we had more crashes than a NASCAR race going on up there. Like
Uh,
y'all are killing me here.
yeah.
Like
I do a lot of traveling in some places, man. Like New York is
oh
crazy.
God, no, nope. I'll take a taxi there, man. I'm good, thanks. I don't think I want to drive through that ever in my life. I've seen it because I've been through downtown Chicago before.
Uh,
Yeah, no, I'm good, man. I've only gone down there very limited times. If I had to, I'm like, yep, I'd rather not be the one driving because it's so crazy down there. Especially all the different signs and the different lanes and everything else. So you don't really start panicking. You're like, oh God, am I in the right lane? Am I going the right way? It's like this is taking me to that everlasting loop. What is going on here? And things like that. So okay, so in your book, you do talk about the limitation transformation. Do you want to give us a little bit how that applied during your recovery?
yeah. Well, there's a saying that a mentor of mine, Scott McFall is his name, and also Tony Robbins has a variation on it. The idea is, if I can't, I must. If I can't, I must. And like, when I could barely speak, I joined Toastmasters, right? And that was a situation where I had peer support and peer pressure to have to talk, and didn't have, I wanted to get back to entertaining. And this was a place where I didn't have to be entertaining, but I had to be able to be understood, and
Yeah.
I couldn't be at first. And so, if I can't, I must. If I can't speak well, I must practice in front of groups, And then later on, I took a stand-up comedy class, and I'd never done stand-up. I just done situational comedy, and turns out I love it. I'm doing more and more stand up, but it was the same thing. If you can't, then you have to push yourself, and that process of pushing yourself really does help you along in your journey. Uh, is something, if you can connected to your values. Like my value was making people laugh and making people open their mind to new possibilities. So because I connected that to that value, it kept me motivated. Like with walking, I thought, how am I going to be able to be there for my kids, or how am I going to be able to travel? So because I said, I can't let weak legs prevent me from the
Yeah.
things that I wanted to do. So I must walk thousands of steps every day. So that idea of taking the limitation and turning into motivation, it also is such a learning experience with anything that you push yourself to learn. It makes it better, and uh, improves your life.
You
Yeah.
know, to play off the fact you just said learn, I know you mentioned hope as being a skill. I know a lot of us realize it's a feeling, but you say in your book that you can teach people how to build hope. So how is that though?
Oh yeah. Hope is, this was an insight that really hit me when I had to, I felt hopeless,
Yeah.
and so I spent a lot of time meditating on this. And hope is the belief that the future will be better than the present, right? It's a belief that the future will be better than it is now. And you can build it through visualization and selective perception. When I yawned, when the arm, came up on its own, I took that as an indicator that there's something going on, right? The arm still works. I just have to find a way to communicate with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And began imagining possibilities and learning about the physical therapy exercises that I had great physical therapists, and I started researching and looking for examples of people who had done it, and selectively looking at that and saying, well, here's proof, and if they can do it, I can do it. And the imagining of it, there's a technique within hypnosis we call future pacing. It's where you imagine, and usually we use trance to amplify it. And this is the idea of imagining really vividly what you want to accomplish through seeing it, what it would look like, hearing words and sounds that bolster the idea of what it would feel like physically from your own perspective, as if you're actually having it happen. I wasn't just imagining what it would look like, what it would feel like, and when you see it, hear it, feel it, until it seems more and more real, your hope increases. When you imagine, say you're out of work and you're trying to get a new job, when you can really imagine yourself giving a good interview, that encourages hope within you. Hope is imagination turned in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
So you can build and increase that.
I'd say the turning point of hope for you, though, is when your arm stopped at that point. That built hope for you because you're like, listen, if that can happen, what else can I do at this point? Where am I stopping? What else can stop me from getting further than that? That's the way I saw it when I was reading it, because I was like, as soon as that arm stopped, I'm like, oh, here we go. That's the turning point from that's his one focal point. The one thing that makes everything change is that if he can do that, why can't he do other things too?
Yeah, it was a big one, but it's one of the things,
especially because a lot of the doctors probably told you couldn't walk or talk or any other kind of stuff. Feeding you had all these negative thoughts and said, hey, listen, there's a chance you can do this. They were probably like, well, honestly, Larry, we don't know if you're ever going to be able to walk again. That whole scenario where they tell you all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, all right, well, fuck it. Now I'm going to have to prove you wrong now.
Yep. There were some that were like that. Although, to be fair, I also had some really positive people. They were like, well, you can improve, but only so far, Yeah.
Well, put limitations. Yep.
One thing that helped me a lot is every time I had, that was, you're right, that was definitely the big moment for me. But every time I've made any minuscule bit of progress, I celebrate it and see that as further proof that I can keep going. I'm still not quite 100%. His speech was a little off in that, but it's continued to improve little bit at a time since over the past 2 years. It's never stopped.
Yeah. I want to touch on a point in your book where you talk about the emotional fuel tank. I know you refer to it as being a car for a lot of people. Your well-being for your car's fuel. What does it mean to fuel someone's emotional engine? Emotional engine, and what does that mean when people are running on empty? Because I think a lot of us are running empty nowadays on a lot of emotions with financial stresses and all these other fears, everything coming on, and all this other crazy stuff going on. I feel like a lot of us are on the empty side of that.
Yeah. It's easy to the fuel for sure, and everyone does. But the the filling of the emotional fuel tank, I think, is mostly about gratitude. Uh, when you focus on and uh, the empowering beliefs, hope, gratitude, laughter, connection, especially with people you love. Those are the things that refill your emotional fuel tank. One thing I've become more and more fascinated with, and I'm really working on pursuing, is the channels for joy. Madan Kataria, who invented laughter yoga, says there's four sources of joy: um, laughter, playing, singing, and dancing. I would add to that unconditional love, you
Yeah.
know, uh, but doing things that bring you joy, not just uh, naming things they're grateful for, but uh, imagining, reminiscing about the things that brought you gratitude, and doing the things that bring it to you here and now is a huge way to refill the emotional gas tank. Laughter, like we talked about, laughing with friends is best. Um,
Hmm.
when you sing karaoke, it's goofy, but it really makes you feel good. When you play with friends, that kind of thing, that's what really fills you back up. And if we make it a conscious effort to pursue joy instead of just try to not be sad, that's a better goal, I think, and it helps to refill that a whole lot more.
Yeah, no, and I think my next thing we're leading into is the communication under stress. Where you make that, where you identify five different communication styles in the book. I know you say people use under stress, but you said only one actually works. Can you tell them about these styles and what most of them backfire? Like most essentially, why do a lot of them backfire? Essentially,
Oh, sure. Oh, that's a good question. Well, this is something Virginia Satir. This is an original idea of mine. It's a Virginia Satir inside, and she was the mother of family systems therapy. A lot of psychologists and social workers, have been influenced by her work. Uh, she identified five ways of communication during stress, and as she calls them, the blamer, the placator, the computer, the distractor, and the leveler. The blamer points his fingers uh, at others, to avoid getting into trouble. They're actually deep down afraid of being in trouble, so they blame you, you know, and there are the blame situations, or maybe they blame themselves and feel guilty in that, but the blaming really isn't healthy. Accountability is worthwhile, but blaming is more likely to turn into an argument. And I'll skip ahead to the one healthy one, and that's the idea of being the leveler. Like you hear the phrase "I level with you." It's the idea that you relax and you speak with tactful, kind honesty, and the best way to through humor. You can make things like, and comedians say truths that other people can't or won't. You know,
exactly. Yep.
yeah, and the other ones. placater, when you just try to make people happy and do things where you don't really want to. Uh, you rather there's compromise versus placating. Placating is just saying, okay, whatever, do whatever you want, and you resent it afterwards. Whereas when you level with them and you work out something where it's a good compromise and you don't have, resentment, good things happen. The computer is where a person clings to logic, and it's more important for him to be right than happy, you know. And then the distractor is a person who uh, changes the subject within an argument, or go to drugs and alcohol and this, anything to avoid leveling. But ultimately, it's the more kind, sincere, honest we can communicate with one another, brings a much better result. And what I think is my favorite technique for this kind of thing is when you see someone else, and imagine they're a child. Say someone that's being the blamer and wants to say, it's all your fault. If you can imagine being a toddler, and you imagine them shrinking down, and they're screaming and thrashing around and blowing snot bubbles, and you can say, well, they have inside of them some kind of a conception that isn't great, and you can be lighter of spirit, and understand they just are coming from a different place and can be more compassionate instead of argumentative.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's funny though. I'm going to do that to somebody who starts doing all that. So I can imagine them as children. The whole theory of like when you get on stage, not to be nervous, imagine everybody in their underwear kind of thing. Just add in there those kind of things.
Right.
So this
So,
leads me into my a very interesting point in this book that I suffer with myself. Forgiveness. Okay, in the book, you call forgiveness an ultimate selfish act. That's a pretty provocative statement. What do you mean by that? And how do you teach people to truly forgive? Because this is something I deal with myself that's hard, that, I have a lot of things I'm trying to deal with. And one of the biggest issues I deal with is having trouble forgiving my mom for, her abandoning me when I was 10, So it's something I deal with every day that I struggle with. What kind of tips could you give people, including myself, what we could do to probably help make it easier to forgive ourselves or forgive that person?
Yeah, that is a wonderful question. It's forgiveness is a selfish act because when you don't forgive, you've got anger, and anger hurts.
Mm-hmm.
You've got resentment, and that hurts. You've got the feeling of hurt, the feeling of abandonment. That those feelings hurt you, right? And when you forgive someone else, it doesn't have any impact on them sometimes at all, right? You
Yeah.
don't forgive for them. I mean, sometimes it does, but you forgive for you, so you don't hurt as much, right? That's
Yeah.
why I say it's a selfish act, and the way to forgive, to deeply imagine you are the person you, and imagine where they came from. You know, say an example. I had a client who was abused by their PhD instructor, and he worked for this person, and the the PhD supervisor had come from a family that was really demanding and was abusive to him. And so he carried on that abuse, right? And the, they took an imagine. We actually did this hypnosis. Uh, she imagined being him, and imagine going back to when he was very young, and the kind of things he where his parents has spoken to him, when how he had been abused, and imagining very deeply how he felt, and imagined what kind of beliefs he developed from that, like the belief that it was okay to be certain ways, how he developed emotionally, where he developed, he became a blamer, right? And he had all kinds of anger, and he believed that since he was spoken to that way, it was okay for him to speak to others that way, you know?
Yeah.
So, the idea is, if imagining what it's like to grow up, never learning how to deal with your own disappointment or hurt, right? Or anger,
Yeah.
right? And when you understand someone well enough, like when you look at a person like they're a child, or if you have a child having a tantrum, right?
Yeah.
You don't hold that against them forever. You say, well, this is a 2-year-old. And the 2-year-old doesn't know that, what's wrong with him not being able to play with a knife. It's he just wants something and hasn't learned to deal with his emotions yet. And so there's nothing to forgive,
Yeah. No,
right?
I get that.
And that's in the Course in Miracles, which is an amazing book. That's the ultimate of what they call divine forgiveness, is when you understand someone so deeply that you can say there's nothing to forgive. That's where they said, like Jesus had, he would forgive to that degree. That's true forgiveness. And when you can approach that, to whatever degree you can let things go, it's a wonderful lightning, the idea of taking that off of your shoulders. So, yeah, that's the idea. So it's a journey. It's not easy,
Nope.
but
I could speak.
it's
I could speak for myself. I could speak on my own self and tell you it is not easy. I've dealt with it for
yeah,
39 years of the aftermath, and I just now started trying to deal with it, and it's probably the hardest thing ever to do. And
it,
it's one of those things I continue to work towards the goal of, getting past it, But I
yeah,
wanted to touch on another point in your book that you make about guilt versus regret. I think this is a very interesting point, though, that's made, that you say it makes an important distinction. You make an important distinction between guilt and regret. Can you explain the differences? Because I think some people sometimes get them muddled a little bit between there, and
oh,
explain, like, why is this so important for people's healing, though?
oh, sure, yeah. Guilt and remorse is it goes back into forgiveness, but turned on yourself. Forgiveness. Guilt is like guilt is uh, how do I best describe it? A guilt is where you're beating yourself up pointlessly. You're it's like it's a way to tell yourself it's a good person. You're a good person because you feel guilty. Regret is where you look at what you did, you learned from it, and you never act in the same way again in the future, right? That's a remorse, a regret. And that's healthy because you're learning from it. But sometimes people just keep spinning about in self-punishment, and that doesn't help you if you keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's it's
Very true.
saying difference between being your own prosecutor and being your own teacher.
True. That's a very good example. I think it's a very great comparison, actually, too. Really
Yeah,
quick, as we get close to start wrapping up, I did want to ask you about this, though. I did find this interesting that you have in the book. You mentioned a study showing hypnosis can reduce healing time by 72%, and that laughter releases the same endorphins as exercise. For skeptics listening, because we probably got a bunch out there as soon as they hear this part of it, what would you say about the scientific backing about these techniques? Put them to rest for us.
Yeah, well, it's hypnosis is something that's been around a long time. There are so many studies. There's actually a whole division within the American Psychiatric Association that is a whole division with thousands of studies. Hypnosis is something where it's a combination of deep relaxation and altering your beliefs and expectations in a more relaxed, safe, could when you get that experience, you're more likely to notice. And it's been used for pain management, reduce stress, any habits that are connected with anxiety. Self-hypnosis itself is it's the study of meditation and using altered states to help you reprogram your mind, like the ideas of neuroplasticity are ones that are deeply connected to it. So it's really good stuff. I've done it for 25 years now, and self-hypnosis can't hardly be beat. And laughter yoga is wonderful in that it increases resilience. It reduces depression, increases life satisfaction. It's cardiovascular stuff. It's I could brag about these things for days. They really are wonderful, and I think it's a wonderful combination. I call it is when I combine hypnosis and laughter to people. I use therapeutically. You can, like we said before, when you can laugh about something, you're, if not healed, you're very close to it.
Yeah, very true point. Very true point. All right, Larry. As we close out this interview, there's one last thing I wanted to ask you. Okay, so you wouldn't wish a stroke on anyone, but you also say it became your greatest teacher. For someone going through their own crisis right now, what advice do you give to them?
Breathe, breathe, take your time. It's okay to feel everything you feel. And, self-pity, you should have a time limit, you know, uh, eat your tubs of ice cream, cry, do what you need to do, and then nurture hope within yourself and realize that what happens oftentimes, I love the metaphor uh, of a butterfly, especially when I learned more about it. A butterfly when they're in their chrysalis and they're or the caterpillar, when they're in their chrysalis and developing, becoming a butterfly, it's not just this magical thing. They turn to goo, and they're going to become a gross, like goo, icky thing. And eventually, when they get to the point where they're free, the coming out of that chrysalis is really terribly hard. When someone tries, sometimes they will see a butterfly struggling to get out. A well-meaning person will sometimes cut it to try and help out the butterfly, but then they come out with the wings completely and can't fly. It's the actual struggle of getting out of that chrysalis that squeezes the fluid out of their wings and that makes it possible for them to fly. So these struggles that can seem horrific and horrible and tragic can help you learn more about life and compassion, and help you grow in ways that enable you to have a more beautiful soul and help others through their transformation. So I'd say try to look at it that way and see, how can I grow through this?
I love it. Absolutely love it. Guys, the book is called The Magical Mindset Shifts. Go check it out right now. I know it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I really probably get your books out right now. Larry, thanks so much for coming. I appreciate being here, man. This is great. I enjoyed the book. Like I said, I'm going to definitely recommend it to some people to check out as well, of course, as always. All the links will be down below the description of this video, guys. If you're watching this now, if you're listening on the audio side, same thing. It'll be here as well. And Larry, thank you so much for coming. You have anything planned down the road for us that we should know about?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed hanging out with it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks. Well, if you're in Richmond, Virginia, I'm starting to do big shows again. I've done a couple of Renaissance fairs, and I've done some open mics. But my first a really full big show where I'm doing hypnosis and magic and is going to be in Richmond. It's 19th at the Firehouse Theater, and hopefully I'll be back to doing lots of shows soon. So, you can look me up at Larry the Hypnotist on Instagram, and then I'll always tell what's going on there.
Definitely, guys. And I have all those links down below. Larry, once again, thanks so much for coming. Guys, you know where to find me. I'm Pete for Anxiety. I'm X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify, all the way down to iHeartRadio. As I always say, it costs nothing absolutely to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete for Anxiety, signing off saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health today?